This is just a brief conference this morning, just to give you an update on what happened over the weekend. As you know, the initial G8 meeting met in Downing Street on Saturday to discuss Mr. Cameron's agenda, particularly relating to transparency, tax and trade. It was attended by many African leaders and also, of course, the leaders of the overseas territories and the Crown dependencies. It was a very interesting weekend, and from the Allan's point of view, it was focused very much on tax information exchange and the beneficial ownership of companies. Now, Mr. Cameron has his aspiration was for all the various territories to sign up to a new agenda, which Mr. Cameron believed he was setting, giving more support to both these issues. Now, from the Allan's point of view, it was a very easy exercise in the sense that we are already well ahead of most other jurisdictions in terms of signing tax information exchange agreements. We've given commitments to the United States, to the UK and to the European Union on moving forward to automatic exchange of information. And the main showpiece, I suppose, of Saturday was to give a further commitment now to a multilateral convention, enabling us to work to a new template to sign similar agreements now across Africa and the developing countries. We have given that commitment because it is not a new commitment from the Allan. It's a continuation of the strategy which we've had now for quite a good number of years, which has left the Allan in a very strong position. That was accepted by Mr. Cameron and by the other senior officials that I met, and the Allan was roundly applauded, I think, for the work we've done to date, and it was recognised. Alongside that, Mr. Cameron has been moving to try and get a commitment to establish a public register of beneficial ownership of companies. This is a new departure for any country, frankly, because as far as I know, there is no public register of beneficial ownership of companies anywhere. But again, the Allan was in a very strong position. We already have in place the regulation of company service providers, of trust service providers. They, by law, have to know the beneficial owners of their individual entities. They have to make that information known to the regulator whenever he wants it, and that information then is made available for law enforcement officers and indeed for tax collectors. They also have regular site visits to ensure that these records are kept up to date. Now, that leaves the Allan well ahead of the United Kingdom and well ahead of most other developed countries. So on both these issues, on tax information exchange and on the register of beneficial ownerships, the Allan is well ahead of the others. The commitment which I gave to Mr. Cameron was obviously that we would be willing to sign up to the new multilateral convention on tax information exchange. We're very comfortable with that. And that we will review the current arrangements that we have on beneficial ownership. I don't believe, though, that a further review of beneficial ownership of the Allan structure will lead to any meaningful change, because I think our structure has been in place now for 12 years. It works very well, and I can see no reason at this stage to change. Mr. Cameron's thoughts, I think, are still in the very early stages on how this is going to work for the UK. They have a much bigger task to do than the Allan, and they are not covering, as far as I understand it, trusts. It is simply to do with company ownership. So it's a slightly different approach to what the Allan has. It's Mr. Cameron's intention to go out to consultation, and we await what the further developments in the UK might be. But in terms of protecting the Allan's position, I think we are in probably the best position we could possibly be as far as being ahead of the curve in terms of anticipating the moral argument now which is driving the move towards greater tax information exchange, and we are well ahead of, as I say, most other countries in terms of beneficial ownership. The meeting itself was very useful. It gave me the chance to meet for the first time many of the leaders of the overseas territories, as well as obviously Jersey and Guernsey, and Mr. Cameron himself. We had a half an hour meeting before the conference started properly, and we were able to express our views on how we saw the agenda developing, and to emphasise once again that the Isle of Man is very much ahead of most other jurisdictions in this work. Mr. Cameron has recognised that, and indeed earlier in the week I met Mr. Gawke, David Gawke, who is the Treasury Minister, where this sentiment was expressed once again. I've also this week had a long meeting with Christian Aid, who have been very much at the forefront of lobbying for greater transparency in these matters. And the individuals I spoke to, again, the senior individuals, were very complimentary about the work the Isle of Man has done, and have less of a concern about the Isle of Man's position and more about the slow reactions of many other jurisdictions. So overall, the weekend, I think, from the Isle of Man's point of view, has been very, very successful. It's completely justified the positions we've taken over the last few years in leading the way in many cases in addressing the need for greater transparency and to adhere to developing international standards on all these areas. We will be issuing an action plan this week which will encompass the points I've just raised, and no doubt there will be further debate in the time ahead. But for the moment, as I say, it's been a good weekend. I'm sure there's still a long way to go. We have the G8 conference proper this week, which starts today and tomorrow. And of course, we have G20 in September, which might in fact develop this theme further. So this is only one step along the way. It's not the end of the journey yet, but from the Isle of Man's point of view, we are in, I think, the best position that we could be in.